I didn't even know what a prop firm was until 2022. When I heard about it, I was like, there's no way this is legit. Like a lot of people, I think that start trading now, props are right at their disposal. But like a lot of people come into trading and they just want to watch a couple videos and they say, oh, okay, all I got to do is pass this prop firm test. It's only a couple $100. And then they think they're set. They think their like whole life's just going to change overnight. And then they fall down that rabbit hole.
Welcome everyone to the Words of Rizdom Podcast. We're back once again. We're here in New York and we're here with a very special guest. I've been waiting to do this podcast for about half a year. We got to sit down in Miami at the FX Summit for about 10-15 minutes. And ever since, we've been trying to get a full length episode in. And thankfully, he's flown all the way to New York to just film this episode with us today. And we are joined by none other than Casper SMC. Casper, I know Casper's not your name.
Yeah.
But it's Jesse, right?
Yeah, Jesse, yeah.
It was a pleasure to have you here, man.
Yeah, man, a pleasure having me on. I've been looking forward to, like you said, it's been like since Miami. So we've been trying to navigate some. I know you're road running around the globe consistently. So finally we made it work. So I'm excited, man.
That's it. I feel like you're going into your travel arc now.
Yeah, I'm definitely starting to start hitting the road a little bit more and get out of my element, start recording more content on the road, stuff like that. And it's fun too. Like I think that it's always good to kind of get a change of scenery.
Mm-hmm.
Like I notice myself, if I don't travel at all, I kind of get like in like a little bit of like a funk almost. You know, when you travel, I feel like it kind of just like motivates you a little bit, puts you out of your element. There's downside to it too, like we were talking about, like the kind of the transition from like the office back to the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's harder to get in the swing of things, especially with trading. But yeah, I'm enjoying it though. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've been traveling too much. I was just telling you just before we started that because of all the travel, I was a scalper. Start of the year, I was scalping. I've been scalping for 2-3 years. Right. And this year, because of all the travel, I had to adapt. And I think I went through a little process where I kept convincing myself it's a short-term thing, all the traveling. Like it's just, I'm only traveling for this month or these next couple months, everything will turn down. But it just so happened every time it would get towards the end of that period, there'd be something else. So I kind of just accepted a month ago to start swing trading. And it's been quite good. It's been quite good. It's more manageable anyway. It's too soon to tell. But the funny thing is I used to be a swing trader when I started. So I've gone through these transitions and had to sort of battle the differences in like holding, etc. And that's what we're going to go straight into really with the pod, is straight into your trading. That's why people are here, right?
Yeah.
And you've had an incredible year, not only in your trading, but also just generally with everything that you've been putting out as well. You've essentially, I know me and you've been like literally neck and neck all year.
Yeah.
It's been absolutely incredible. And the journey is unreal, no doubt. I know we got to touch on it a little bit in Miami. We talked about obviously your sales background and sort of the professional growth, the mindset growth that you've had as well. And we didn't get to touch too much on trading. So in terms of trading, like why did you become a trader in the first place? What was the motivation?
So honestly, I got into trading almost on accident, kind of being a complete degen, right? Like I had some friends who were really into crypto back in like 2016 before. I mean, people knew what crypto was, but like I'd heard of Bitcoin. Back at that time, it wasn't even like buying Bitcoin wasn't even the same. Like there was stuff called local Bitcoin. I mean, Coinbase was also a thing, but it was a little bit different, more underground. And some people I respected told me to get into crypto. I got in, and then it rocketed, right? So of course, I think like, oh, I've cracked the code. I'm gonna be a trader. Now I'm Jordan Belfort. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like, this is so easy because I made a killing. But the problem was, well, I thought I had made a killing because I didn't know the number one rule in any trading, which is, it's still unrealized until you take profits, right? So I didn't take profits at the top, took it on the way down, still did really well, but that's what got me into trading. And I started to do what I thought was trading, but it was more or less just complete gambling. I had no risk management. I'd watch YouTube videos. Like I thought that I was educating myself, I was watching like these super cliche channels they'll just, like trading 212, stuff like that, where it just teaches you like you want to learn this strategy? Here's a 10-minute video on it. And I was watching everything from like support and resistance, Elliott wave, harmonics, trying to learn to trade and, make money like I had made money because I didn't really realize I just had got lucky, right? So like I had to learn the hard way over a couple years off and on, and I wasn't really doing it full time. But up until 2020, I really wasn't doing it right. You know what I mean? I wasn't taking it professionally. It was almost more like a side hobby hustle. Like I'm gambling, like to make some, it's like I was sports betting almost. Right. But then in 2020, whenever everybody was starting to trade, I had this Discord that kept popping up on my Snapchat. Like people were doing promos to it. And it was a Playbit Discord which now I'm a partner in, funny enough. But I started off in that Discord in 2020. It was funny. I was looking back at the old message that I had sent, and it was like something super just rookie. It said like, "Hey, what's up, guys? Can't wait to make a bunch of profits with everyone," or something like, just the classic Chad guy coming into the chat. But ended up getting taking it really serious, and I discovered ICT, and I transferred from trading like harmonics into kind of harmonics with ICT, and that was when I started to see. I was using like an order block, so. For anybody who trades harmonics or understands them, they all have like a D point completion. Like, you know what I'm talking about? There's like the crab, like the M patterns.
Yeah.
So basically what I was doing was if I would find like a pattern, like a bat or a crab that was going, like it was supposed to form, right? And then there was an order block near it, it would work. And that was when I finally was like, oh, now I'm starting to realize what an edge is. Now I'm not just looking at the chart, pushing a button because I have a feeling that it's going to go up. You know what I mean? So that was when I started to see some consistency. Still wasn't managing my risk properly, but I was starting to make money. Right? I was definitely boom and bust though. Like I would go, on these big sprees of making a lot of money, and it was all crypto too. Another thing,
okay,
it was all crypto. I was trading like Binance futures. There wasn't any kind of like MetaTrader exposure really even at that point. I wouldn't even have known how to use it. So whenever I was trading like that, I started to finally get an edge, but then I started to really like dive into ICT because I looked at it like, okay, well, I was trading harmonics for a long time and they didn't really work that consistently. But then I started to add ICT and I started making money. So I'm like, okay, there's something, and it wasn't even really ICT. It was like order blocks. Because I think that's what a lot of people get into, supply and demand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's kind of like the way a lot of people got introduced to ICT. But once I started really diving into the 2016 content, like I got my hands on a mega folder that had like all of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I still have it actually, but I had all of the whole mentorship, all of the what's it, you want to call them streams, I guess, like his commentaries and stuff like that. But I just started watching like all of it. Like I remember the girl that I'm with now, I was literally had just met her and I would be like, we'd be hanging out and I'd be on like an iPad watching like ICT. That was how.
Who is this crazy crazy guy that you listen to?
Yeah, no, literally, she was like, why are you always watching this? Like, because he's always, ICT is talking about she's like, what are they talking about? But I stuck with it. And that's when I started to make money, right? Because I was like, okay, this has logic behind it. I have a way to actually reason with what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And then I started to see the value in building a narrative because without that, you don't really have any conviction in like your entry model. And that's what a lot of people in ICT are missing is they see like the ICT 2022, they watch 4 or 5 episodes, say, oh, okay, every time a low's taken, I look for a 1-minute market structure shift. And they wonder why sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, But before the 2022 mentorship, I think that the way you learned ICT was a bit different. I think it was more focused on, the higher time frames and like understanding like which way the weekly or daily candle is likely to expand. So I came into ICT like that, I was doing a lot of like 15-minute entries, 1-hour entries. I wasn't really like scalping in crypto. And then as prop firms, I didn't even know what a prop firm was until 2022. Had no idea. I'd heard of FTMO, but I didn't understand what they were doing.
Yeah.
Right. When I heard about it, I was like, there's no way this is legit. You know what I mean? And the way I heard about it was other people in the Discord were using them and like making money. So I said, okay, well, I mean, this guy I know, he's not lying, is showing he's made money. So I'm like, all you got to do is, get 10%. It was back before the rush, you know what I mean? Because this was like, I guess it was like the beginning of the rush because it was like mid 2022. And I came into this, like I was already pretty profitable and had scaled personal accounts. So whenever I came into trading prop, I think I was in a better space to trade prop than a lot of people like a lot of people I think that start trading now and like props are right at their disposal.
Yeah.
That's like, I mean, it's a good thing in the sense that there's an opportunity there. So be it that you responsibly take the opportunity.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people come into trading and they just want to watch a couple videos and they say, oh, okay, all I got to do is pass this prop from test. It's only a couple $100, and then they think they're set. They think their like whole life's just going to change overnight. And then they fall down that rabbit hole. But anyways, going back to, I got a little off track there. But that was whenever I started to trade indices and Forex a little bit more. I started dabbling in both, but then I started to trade indices primarily more because the time for me, like I'm on New York time.
Yeah.
So having that very tight window, really I'm usually only looking from like 9 to 10:30ish. Back then it was a little longer, like 9 to noon. But
what time zone do you like predominantly stay in?
New York.
You're in New York time.
Yeah,
zone,
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So where I'm in Tennessee, Tennessee is central. There is central time in Tennessee,
Yeah.
but I'm in the eastern side of Tennessee.
Okay.
So I'm in
Mhm.
Eastern time.
So yeah, so then the indices decision was basically because of the timing. Because obviously with the forex side, you have the London session and the Frankfurt session side of things, which is where you're like, if you want to trade that, that's probably like 2 a.m., 3 a.m.
Yeah, yeah. I used to live in California and I used to trade
It's even
crypto.
worse.
Yeah, well, I used to trade crypto during that time
Mm-hmm.
because whenever you're trading it in California, you just stay up a little bit. You know what I mean? But I would trade crypto during that time, but I didn't even realize that was like the London session back then. I literally would just watch the markets. It was before ICT, or not before ICT, before I discovered ICT.
Yeah.
They're like sessions. And I'd be like, dang, like the markets really start moving right around like 2 a.m. East or like 11 p.m. at night. You know what I mean? Because Cali, it's like, you know, it's like 11 o'clock at night, 10
Yeah.
to 11, it starts moving.
Mhm.
So it was kind of cool for me. It's kind of like the people who live in Dubai.
Yeah.
It's like the
Yeah.
same kind of schedule. Like I know there's just like 8 to 9, but it was like you could have your whole day and then just like almost trade at night. But almost, I feel like it leads to degeneracy doing it like that. Because like you're like up late. Like I don't know.
You've had your whole day, probably a
Yeah.
bit fatigued,
It's like let's
not as
go.
focused.
Yeah, let's go. Let's get this done. Let's trade. You know, I don't know. I was like, you know, back then I wasn't as focused either. So I feel like wasn't, you know.
How did you focus? Because I know that's a big thing in terms of your journey. Is like you really leveled up your professionalism, your sort of mindset, your focus on getting the work done. What was it that made that shift for you?
Yeah, thank you first off. But really, man, I think it's just, you know, I've always wanted to excel, right? Whether it was like sports when I was growing up. My dad was like super like military style. Like, you know, like if I wasn't doing the best, he would be like, you know, you need to pick your shit up. You need to get your shit together. There was no like softness, no, you know, no patience with that.
Yeah.
So like, I think that like I used to hate that shit when I was a kid, but now looking back, I'm so thankful for that because that's how like my internal dialogue is. Like, it's like, who do you think you are? You want all this nice stuff, but you can't, you know, do very simple things that any other human can do. Because at the end of the day, like discipline is just a choice. It's not like you're born or with discipline or not born with it, or like you're incapable to do it, right? And that's the thing I tell a lot of people is just the consistency and just finding that motivation. I think, like to answer the question, I think it's really just I knew what I wanted. I saw a really good opportunity, and I was like, look, like imagine how many other people would kill for this opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people look at it like they have all this work. They're like, oh, I have to do all this stuff, or I got to do this. Oh, I don't want to do it. It's more like, no, like you get to do all that. That's the way I look at it. You know what I mean? So it's almost like I'll be like appalled with myself if I'm not going hard. And I don't feel right either. Like even like with the holidays, like I understand there's balance, right? Like I know whenever like a lot of people watching see my tweets or see stuff and people think that like, yeah, this guy's crazy. Like he's just always this and that. Like I get it. There needs to be balance, right? But not as much balance as most people. That people will say balance is like, oh, I'll work 4 hours a day and then just mess up the rest, and then take the whole weekend off. Like that's not bad. That's unbalanced the other way. But you know, even after the holidays, like I kind of feel like I'm like, oh, I got so much stuff I got to get back to. I know you're probably in the same thing. Any kind of time you're taking any leisure time, you know, it's almost like you're like want to get back. But I think a lot of it too is that I love what I do.
I was going to say that, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and that I forget that sometimes that like, I understand that like, you know, I preach all this stuff about hard work, discipline, all that. But I also, you know, understand that it's a lot easier to kind of walk the talk of that if you're doing something you love.
Yep.
And I'm very grateful that I'm blessed enough to do something that I have this opportunity. Because if you'd have told me like before I was trading, you know, like throughout the time where I was like not really doing the greatest at trading, I ran a trucking company. I think we talked about that a little bit. And dude, that's a terrible business to run. I mean, if you look at just numbers, it can be a great business, but it's very stressful. You deal with a lot of like not so great people. It's all kind of like hustle and bustle. And I mean, this is a good hustle and bustle, but looking back, like if you would have told me then that I'd be doing this now, oh my God, I'd be like, I wouldn't believe you, you know, because this is so much more fulfilling. You know, I'm actually able to make an impact. And I love what I do. And then you know, when it's like that, I'll work a 14-hour day and feel like that's just a day. Like, oh, it's 10 o'clock. I got to get sleep so I can get up and do it tomorrow. Shit, let's go to sleep. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. No, 100%. I think it's so powerful and it's so important to realize that because I think a lot of people, they have things they're passionate about. And I think a lot of people don't know what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
But they also don't try. They don't help themselves. Like I know family members of mine and friends of mine who are in that exact position. They want to do something different to what they're doing in terms of their job. but they don't allow themselves the time to experiment. They think they need to know. Does that make sense? Like they need to know it's this thing. But for me, like before I became across trading, I tried having a liquor store, like a shop. I tried like maybe going into like restaurants and owning restaurants. I had tried doing like club nights when I was younger. I used to sell fake DVDs on eBay, for example. Like I've tried all these different hustles, with the mindset of being an entrepreneur and doing something different. And I think a lot of people have a mindset, and it's not about, I know there's always an argument of like entrepreneurship. Like not everyone should be an entrepreneur. And I get that. That is true. But I think, let's say, for example, let's say putting entrepreneurship aside, let's say someone had a passion for animals, right? They don't have to be an entrepreneur to do that. They could work in a zoo. They could work in a safari park. They could become a vet, right? They don't have to own the vet, right? But like if someone has that sort of passion, whether let's say one person individual, they like animals, they like surfing, they like football, right? If you do trial and error in each of those, not thinking that you have to pick one of them, right? And I think that's the error that people make, is that they feel like they have to. When we talk about passion, it means that you're only passionate about one thing, and that's the one thing you're going to do, and therefore they hold themselves back from trying because they think, oh, but I don't know if it's that. I like it, but I don't know if it's that. And I was speaking to someone recently where I asked him, I said, look, he's a young kid, and his mum asked me to like sort of just speak to him and just to give him some advice, etc. And I said to him, like, what is it you enjoy? And he said, fashion. I said, that's it then. Go make content on fashion. Go get into that industry. Go get a job in fashion. And then he was like, as the time went on, that was his initial reaction, like his instant one. As time went on, though, he was like, I think I like watches. I was like, that's fine. That's kind of in regards to fashion, but just go do it. Don't worry about it. Don't think, oh, which one and all this. Just go do it. And was that similar to yourself? Like in terms of, I'm guessing it wasn't just like trading done, as you've already mentioned, like you had trading kind of more like a side thing, but before trading, you had the trucking business. Were there things before that as well, where you trial and error and found your way to where you are?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I also was like a solar lead setter, like a door knocker. I did door to door, and I ended up becoming a closer for them. Right? I think we talked a little bit about that on the last one, but then I ended up breaking off from that company because I started to realize, because I've always like you're saying, I've always just had the entrepreneur identity.
Yeah.
Like every time when I started that job, I knew that was like, this is not what I'm trying to do. I look at it as like, okay, I can get my foot in the door. I can learn a valuable skill, maybe climb the company, maybe not, but I learned something at the end of the day, right? Just like you said, just go out and do stuff, right? But I ended up like starting to just kind of like look into the numbers. I was like the youngest guy that was selling, right? Because it was in North Carolina, kind of like a more country area. And it was like a politics thing. Like it was like the old dudes. Like they didn't even want me to sell. They were like, what is this young idiot doing here? You know what I mean? But I started doing really well. So then they, like I wasn't the sales manager, but I would run like the sales meetings and stuff like that. And
we
then,
doing them, getting them motivated.
You know what's funny actually? They had like a poster of like the Wolf of Wall Street on the wall.
Really?
Yeah. That was kind of like not me, the sales manager. He was an older dude. Not that, out there with it, but it kind of that vibe. But no, I would basically just do like, we just review like, kind of like go do like little exercises, like, random like little like mental exercises, stuff like that. But then I started to look at the numbers and talk to other people that were working for other companies, and other companies were selling at like a rate 30% lower than ours was.
Wow.
So then I realized, I was like, and I mean, obviously these the other companies were bigger than the company I was working for, probably because of that, right? Probably because they're doing good business. And this company was more into margins. They didn't see like the big picture. And I talked to the sales manager about it, and he was like, I kind of just was like trying to put a feeler out to see like, why don't we like start our own thing? Because it's not that hard. Like the way solar business works is like the sales team is usually like, it seems like it's all the same company, but it's like actually multiple companies operating under a brand. So there might be the big brand, but then anybody who has a sales team can approach that brand and like, you know what I mean? Like kind of white label it almost.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we ended up doing. I was like, we should do our own thing. He's like, yeah, I mean, I've been wanting to do that for a while. So we did that, started our own little team. Like we had a couple other guys, and we were selling to ourselves. It was like real bootstrap, real grassroots. And it did very well until the grants in North Carolina for solar started dropping.
Yeah.
So then I started to slowly kind of like get out of that business because it just was way harder. And selling solar is not an easy thing you need to sell.
What's the mindset though? So like you've been through that process, right? You did the trucking process. And no doubt when you started them though, you didn't have like a short-term mindset. No doubt. Like you might have realized, okay, this maybe isn't something I want to do forever, but I want to do this well and I want to make good money from this. So therefore I can go do the other things I want to do, for example. But then you get started and it does well, but it doesn't go where you wanted it to go for whatever reason. What is the mindset to be able to move on from that without getting stuck? So like with trading, for example, someone gets denied a payout, or they lose a challenge, or they had a big like a payout ready and then they lose it for whatever reason, or MFF situation, for example, they finally got their first payout and it closes down. It's the same mindset really of like, okay, you've had this unfortunate thing that maybe is outside your circumstance. How do you continue to move forward without letting that sort of just hold you back and be awake? Because a lot of people do that. They allow these things and these situations to hold them down. So how did you do that?
Honest, that's a great question. And I think a lot of people can benefit from a perspective shift from, I think the reason that a lot of people get down about that is because they want the benefits of entrepreneurship, because that's what really, when you're trading, it's a form of entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
You're running your own business. Yes, it's different than, having a team or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, people want the benefits of entrepreneurship, but they don't want the hardships that come with it. And then their goal, instead of becoming a good entrepreneur who could weather any storm, their goal is just the outcome. Like, they don't set the goal to be the identity of a good business person, right?
Mhm.
If you do that, then any loss, any kind of setback, any kind of adversity, obstacle, whatever, like, it looks like to you the end of the world,
Mhm.
right? Because it's against your goal of making a bunch of money, whatever. But if you set a goal just to be a good entrepreneur, like, what does a good entrepreneur do in that situation?
Mhm.
You're not as jarred by all these little obstacles. You look at it like, this is an opportunity to become better at what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because, like, I look at it like every day, like, there'll be a fire to put out somewhere
Mhm.
most of the time, whether it's small or big. And I used to freak out about those. And it's just the same way, like, people take a loss. Like, every week you're gonna have a losing day,
Mhm.
most of the time, not all the time, but every year you're gonna have a losing week, right?
Mhm.
Maybe a losing month. You might lose your account. Some of the best traders lose their accounts, but everybody doesn't look at all that. They want to ignore that and let those setbacks kind of get to them. But the way that I look at it is like, you have to have that hustler mentality and
Mhm.
understand, like, there is not anything that's guaranteed, right? And that's kind of the game you play. If you want to get high stakes, like, you want to get, make a bunch of money, you want to have that high potential,
Mhm.
you're gonna have to have the risk to fall on your face,
Mhm.
and it's gonna happen, right? Like you said, you tried multiple different hustles before you got to where you're at now. I
Mhm.
tried multiple different hustles, and funny enough, looking back, like, when I was doing the solar thing at one time, I thought, this is it.
Mhm.
I made it. I figured it out.
Yeah.
I'm picturing this enterprise. Didn't work out. Of course, I'm not saying you're not going to be upset about it. You know what I mean? You're a human, right? You're going to be like, man, like, you're frustrated, but, like, you also got to zoom out and understand, again, like, the entrepreneur mindset is an identity. It's not the outcome. It's like trading, right?
Mhm.
Like, it's like if you set your goal to be a good trader rather than to just make money, when you take losses, you can still, your brain's not going to start triggering that fight or flight.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I did a podcast with a guy called Twist that just dropped last week.
Yeah.
Last week, yeah. I have to remember. I filmed it a couple months ago, but it
Oh,
came
yeah.
out last week. But he mentioned something on there, which is like, don't focus on the outcome, focus on the or don't focus on the results. Sorry, focus on the performance. And there was some people trying to debate in the comments, like, no, like, it doesn't matter about your performance, because if your results terrible, it doesn't matter. What are your thoughts? Because it's kind of similar to what you just mentioned there. Is like, rather than focusing on the outcome or the result of it, like the profit or loss, focus on being a good trader, which essentially is the performance. So what is your thoughts on that?
No, I agree with him. I didn't see the whole pod, but I saw a
Mhm.
short.
Mhm.
And I think that if anybody is, like, combating that, I think either they misunderstood it or they just have a weird perspective. And everybody's has right to their own opinion. But I think it's kind of common sense as a trader, like, especially for a learning trader. And I think that's kind of like more what he was like, that was the vibe. He was like saying, like, if you're learning, like, your goal should be to be a good trader, right?
Mhm.
Because, again, it's literally like, it's psychology. If your goal is to win trades, or your goal is to learn analysis and just call every move in the market, whenever that doesn't happen, like, when you get punched in the face, it's going to hurt a lot more,
Mhm.
because your brain is looking at it as a threat to your goal. But while as if your goal is, oh, my goal is just to be a good trader and follow my system, I know that I have an edge as long as I have the composure to execute on it.
Mhm.
Your goal is just to maintain that, right? Because, trust me, like, yes, there was, at the end of the day, we're here to make money. Okay. I'm not saying this is just only focus on, like, oh, A for effort. But when you're learning, like, trust me, you're going to have to get that down before you're going to be able to make a lot of money.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, I wholeheartedly agree with that. You got to just focus on, and even now, dude, it's just, I think a lot of it too, whenever you're learning, whenever you're newer to trading, and I know this is how it was for me, like you have all these different little aha moments.
Mhm.
Like it might be from you doing something, it might be from a trading day, it might be from watching an educational video and somebody just says something that was probably already obvious to you, but they just put it into a new perspective where you're like, okay, that happens to me.
Mhm.
Or oh, okay, he's talking, I'm vibing with this, and you know, you have enough of those over time where you start to really, I don't know how to put it. Like you basically start to embody being a better trader. And
Mhm.
like for me, the big perspective shift with my psychology like that was to start looking at it as my goal isn't necessarily even to come here and make money or to come and win trades or to, that's why I don't believe in profit goals. I think that's like, oh, my profit goal for this month is 10K. I'm like, you should have like a cutoff, not
Mhm.
a goal. Like, you know what I mean? Like if I hit 10K, I'll stop.
Mhm.
Not like, oh, I'm gonna trade till I get 10K. Because then like if that's your goal, instead of just trading well, anything against that 10K is a threat. And you start
Mhm.
getting stressed and then you go down the same rabbit hole most traders do.
Definitely, it's very interesting you say that because one observation I've always tried to make is, some people when they get into trading, because I always say you need to have a passion for the markets in some degree. Like you need to really enjoy what the markets represent. You want to know about the markets at a deeper level rather than just, oh, I trade and buy and sell, done. But some people try to again give their opinion on that, saying that it doesn't matter. Like you're here to make money, which is true, but kind of similar to what you just said there is if you're passionate only about making money, what happens when you lose money? Because that's the complete opposite of your passion. So what happens to your emotions? Versus if you are focused on being a trader and the skill set, you understand already straight away that you're going to lose money, right? And yes, you are there because you want to be able to make money, but you're doing something you enjoy and you're doing something that you're mastering a skill set so that once you've mastered that skill set as a byproduct, you get money, right? And a very good amount of money as well. The way I've always sort of put it in my head is like you'll go through the losses in your learning journey, but then if you focus properly and you do all the right steps and you get profitable, you're then paid back with interest, right? A delayed, in the future. But everyone's always focused on now, as you said. Like, and I think it's very interesting what you said there in terms of not having a profit goal but a cutoff. I think it's interesting as well. So far, there's like a sense of how you choose to perceive things or like the internal dialogue is very important. So as you mentioned earlier about being disciplined, right? Is that internal dialogue of rather than saying, I have to do this or I have to do that, is I get to do that or I need to do that or I want to do that versus it's like a chore, right?
Mhm.
I think that was very powerful. And then even now, the internal dialogue of saying rather than saying, okay, this is my target, instead it's just switching it to this is my cutoff. I think it's very interesting. And would you say, I've always been a big believer, everyone wants to know what the holy grail of trading is, right? Everyone always says, what is the holy grail? People say ICT, people say order blocks, people say liquidity, people say all sorts. But I've always said personally that the holy grail of trading is just all the little intricate things, all the little details when put together, that's the holy grail. So to every individual, it's different. So
Mhm.
someone might have pitfalls of psychology, etc. Someone might have a gaps in knowledge on liquidity or on structure. So for every trader, it'll be different. But essentially, that's my opinion. Is it's the accumulation of these little things that is then the holy grail. What do you think to that?
No, I agree with that. That's a good way to put it. Like I would say if I had like gun to my head, had to pick the holy grail of
Mhm.
trading, I would say it's not giving a fuck, honestly. Like genuinely,
Mhm.
right? Like think about it. I see so many people too that I can see this in others. I know it's in myself. And this is also why I don't think people who aren't financially stable should trade, right? Because if you are motivated like that in a sense, like it's not even motivated, it's like you're
It's desperation.
you're
Mhm.
desperate, right? Like trading is not a broke man's game. It is not.
Mhm.
And people are going to be mad about that. They're going to say that I'm trying to talk negatively. That's the truth. I'm not here to like tell people stuff they want to hear, right?
Mhm.
So I think that, not caring and like completely not necessarily detaching from your emotions, but becoming aware of them and like being willing to lose. Like it's the same in business too. Like you said, it goes back to like people are so afraid to try things because they think it has to work.
Mhm.
It's like in trading, people almost are like, that they want things to work so bad that it's like a fear is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mhm.
If you care too much about something, it's like, trying to talk to a girl, right? It's like the same thing. It's like
Mhm.
if you're gonna smother the girl, she's gonna run away from you. If you're gonna try to smother the markets, they're gonna run away from you, right? If you're gonna try to force yourself to make money and you just care so deeply about it, it's going to, repel what you want.
Mhm.
So like that, if I had to say, your answer is probably better because it is truly.
I like yours. I like yours.
Yeah.
Because it kind of embodies that as well. Because rather than focusing, because similar thing, like a lot of people try and focus on what is the Holy Grail. Like they're trying to find this hack, trying to find this one thing that's going to make the difference. But the reality is like you just don't care about these things. You shouldn't care about what other people's opinions are, what people are arguing about in terms of what's the best style, what the best pair is, or what the best risk to reward is, or how which style of trading is the best. And I think it, and again, like you said, like not caring about the result. It's like the way I see it is that nothing's absolute, right? And you can't just not care at all, because some people will just take that and be like, okay, I shouldn't care, I'll just throw money at it, right?
Yeah.
It's all calculated. It all has its like positives and negatives. I think everything has its balance. And I think trading really reflects like the need for balance, because you shouldn't like, a lot of people try and say like you have to kill the ego, right? But I feel like a part of ego is confidence. So if you completely kill your ego, you're going to lack confidence, right? And self-belief. So there's a balance there. Like you don't be egotistical where you're overconfident, right? And you're too greedy, right? And too sure of yourself, especially in the markets. But then you need to at least have enough ego to believe in yourself, to back yourself, to be able to, and that's going to help you when you have those losing trades, those losing streaks, or when you've made a mistake, So I think there's always that balance. But let's go back quickly in terms of the journey. So you had the harmonics, you came across ICT, you started to blend the two. That's where you started to see you're in the boom and bust cycle from there. What was it that allowed you to then go into the profitability? I know you mentioned about building a narrative. So how did that look for you at the time?
The fastest growing podcast in the world in the trading space, Words of Rizdom, now has the fastest growing Patreon as well. On the Patreon, we have exclusive episodes every single week, as well as Q&As with myself, Q&As with the best traders across the world, and we have the very best discounts in the entire industry only for our Patreon members. All of that is just $15 a month. Who okayed this? All of that for $15 a month? Fine, we'll let it happen. But $15 a month, you can get all of that, and we have so much more coming. Click the link in the description. Let's get back to the episode.
So honestly, what it was, okay, so number one was risk management. It was a multitude of different things, but the biggest one was risk management. Like, you want to know how, like the way I was sizing my positions before, I was literally, it didn't matter the stop, right? Like I wasn't even sizing my positions based off the stop. I would go for a similar stop because swing trade would be like a 10% on altcoins, but I would just put 5% of my entire account on each trade.
Wow.
So that's why I was boom and bust. You see, really quick why it was like, because then, you hit and you'd make money. Thank God what I did too, I would actually withdraw. Because a lot of people that are trading personal, like I'll talk to them like, and you can almost see it on, or hear it in someone's voice. Like, what do you withdraw every week? They're like, withdraw? How do you withdraw? No, I've had that. I've had people be like, how do you withdraw off Binance? And I'm like, I've been seeing this guy trading on Binance for a while. You know what I mean? But anyways, basically the biggest shift was really, I started to size my position based off stop loss. I know that sounds like ridiculous. Like I traded for that long without doing that. Yeah. It's a wonder that I didn't completely, I did liquidate multiple accounts on the way up, but yeah, it was like starting to size my position based off stop loss and really just refining my strategy. Because when I first learned ICT, and this is why, like a lot of the stuff that I talk about, so like with such conviction, like I'll be like, you're doing this wrong. People are like, oh, like, you don't know that. I'm like, I'm speaking from experience. I made the mistakes I'm telling people not to make. I'm not sitting here saying like, I just figured it out and this is how you do it. But my biggest thing was like, I was trying to use so many different concepts at once. Like I would have, I was doing harmonics and order books, and I started to learn about, kill zones and like the IPTA ranges. And then I'm starting to learn about the power of three, which power of three is all you need. I'll throw that out there. But I was trying to use so many different things at once to where, either you see too many trades or you're just paralyzed. And then there's no trades. And then you just say, okay, well, I haven't had a trade in a while. I'm just going to start, spiraling pretty much without even realizing. Then you look back at the end of the day and you're kind of like, what did I do? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I know that feeling too well. So whenever I really started to become consistent was when I started saying, okay, look, I got to figure out something to simplify my strategy to where I actually have an edge that I can look over and I can see a checklist. And it's almost like, it's like a SOP in a business, right? Or like policy. Like you create a policy, and then when it's time to make decisions, it's based off data. And that you're not even making the decision at that point. Like you're making the decision based off the policy, right? It's like at my companies, like there are certain things that if you do, right, multiple times, you're gone.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if you're the best performing person. It doesn't matter, because that's kind of the culture you have to run. And that's what you have to learn with yourself too. You know what I mean? So whenever I started to refine my strategy into more actionable steps that are easy to spot on the chart, that was when I started to be able to become consistent. I started trading less, because I would say, wow, that's another thing people say, like, they'll go over a strategy, like, how many trades does this get? It doesn't even get many trades a week. Well, I mean, do you want to trade a lot, or you want to make money? You know what I mean? But I started to trade a lot less, started to refine how many pairs I was trading. That's another big thing. I was trading, like, basically I had an altcoin watch list that was just like, dude, I'm talking every altcoin you can think of. Yeah, I still actually have the wallet. It was like over 100 coins.
Wow.
I mean, I was swing trading. So, I would look every week or so, and I'd kind of flag, like I'd use a trading view thing, and I'd flag like 5 to 10 of them. And I would just have like limit orders set. I used to do a lot of like limit orders. Like I would just say, have like a level, and I would just set a limit on it and just kind of wait. And once I switched away from doing that and more like market execution, like waiting for liquidity to be taken instead of just trading like the first tap into a zone.
Yeah.
Like I would wait for the tap and then the sweep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It was a multitude of different things, but the biggest was definitely like starting to manage risk like a professional, not just become like, oh, like here's the next sports bet. I always look back and compare the way I was trading coming up to like degeneracy. Just sports betting. Dude.
I think from most of the conversations I've had, like I've obviously spoken to a lot of people on the podcast, but even just from my own journey and then people I've interacted with over the years before the pod as well, everyone goes through a very similar journey. And if they don't go through that stage, they then have this fear of losing. So therefore they never make profit anyway. So there is no winning in that sense. So like you can't avoid it. I think even people who haven't blown an account or at least lost large amounts, even if they haven't blown the account, is they then have this issue where they can't win because they're too scared to lose, because they haven't lost, if that makes sense. So there isn't a winning. You have to go through one of those processes. And I think, with trading, it's building that tolerance to losses, understanding why you're losing at that rate. How do you avoid then losing at that rate? Because you can hear people talk about it, but experience is king. And that's with everything, not even just trading, but in life, right? Like I remember people used to say to me, like, you should try not to party when you're young, like, work hard and you'll make the most of it. And at the time, I wasn't even thinking about partying. So I was like, yeah, that's fine. Like, I don't have to worry about that. A few years go by, and then suddenly you're at a certain age where partying seems like the thing to do. And then you fall into that trap. And then only then you connect the bridge. You're like, oh, that guy said this. This is probably why, right? But you have to experience it to some degree. No, maybe not that, a particular example, but just generally. But you mentioned that, like, in terms of having the policy, right? And I think it's very good. I think in terms of the mindset as well, the internal dialogue, again, going back to that, is that you've set yourself this set of rules or this procedure that has to be followed in terms of being successful as a trader. But I feel like a lot of people do make their trading plans and they do make these policies, but they don't stick to them. So what allowed you to stick to it?
Honestly, man, that's something that, like, once I had like a set, like kind of the way I look at it, and this is the same way, like this is kind of goes back to my dad when I was younger, like really just drilling into like, okay, like, do you want to do that? Are you serious about this? Right? Like, so what are you here for? You're here to trade. Are you here to make money? Is this going to be your career? Or are you just here for a fun time to like gamble a little bit? Right. And if the answer is you're going to be here for a long time, okay, well, you're operating in a game where over 90% of people lose. And you're telling me you think you're going to win and you can't even adhere to a couple rules. Get out of here. You're wasting your time and money. You know what I mean? And it's easy to lose sight of that. And I'm not saying, like, to this day, I still make mistakes sometimes. I don't think anybody is just a perfect trader forever. I don't believe that. But you have to have that grounding, kind of sit back into your mindset of like, okay, like, whoa, like this isn't aligning with my goals. Like, are my actions aligning with what I say I want to do? Because if not, you're just a bullshitter, right? And that's just in life too. And like, I think a lot of it too is like pride in a sense, like, and like the way you hold yourself. Kind of branch off a little bit. That's another thing I think is the holy grail. I was thinking of this after that, was so many people I see in the trading space, they have like their mental health is insane. Like you see it on Twitter, it's crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like some people literally just sit there. Like I had people that were in my Telegram that will just continuously just like talk shit to me. I'm like, you're in my Telegram trying to learn, but you're going to sit there and like talk. It's like, you know what I mean? Because people are so like kind of toxic minded because they're in an industry, they're losing money, obviously. Yeah. They're angry and their mental health's out the window. Like if you don't have that, like if you don't have composure, like you don't respect yourself and you don't hold yourself to like a high standard, like a high class person, like you're probably not gonna be a good trader. I don't know anybody who's successful at trading who isn't what I would consider a high class elite individual. Yeah. You know what I mean? and again, that goes back to like tying in what we were talking about with like your, holding yourself accountable to your rule set. Like I wouldn't respect myself if I couldn't even adhere to like a very simple rule set.
Mhm.
Like, oh, like if I take 2 losses, I'm done. I risk this much per trade. If I take a 1 win, I'm done for the day. If and again, you make mistakes sometimes, but if you just continuously disrespect the game plan that you've set for yourself to achieve what you say you want to do, then you don't really want to do it.
Mhm.
You just want to tell yourself you're doing something and feel productive.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people you see people jump from e-com to FBA to trading to whatever, wholesaling, real estate, whatever. And I mean, we did that, I think, but we found one and we stuck with it. But the people who never stick with anything,
Mhm.
they tell themselves like they don't want to work a job
Mhm.
because they're lazy.
Yeah.
That's what it really comes down to. They see something online, they see people flexing cars and all this stuff that you can get, right? But that's all they see, and they think, okay, I don't have to work a job. I can just learn on YouTube and push buttons and make money.
Yeah.
And then when it's not that easy, they don't have any discipline to stick to it.
Mhm.
And then those people are just kind of like all over the place. But really, what that comes from is not holding yourself to a high standard and
Yeah.
not really being like extremely like, a lot of people say like no, like negative self-talk's bad, right? Like I get it to some point. It can be like, David Goggins kind of stuff pretty extreme. Like, I mean, all respect Goggins go, but you have to be like that a little bit. Like you can't be on some like little kid shit, like baby yourself. It's like you have to have that kind of like hard mentality with yourself and hold yourself accountable. Like, hey, what are you doing? Like,
Mhm.
get your shit together.
Mhm.
But if you don't do that, you're never going to be able to adhere to any rules, right?
Mhm.
Like whether it's a gym routine, whether it's a diet, whether it's focusing 4 hours a day to deep work to like whatever you're trying to achieve.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Do you
Everything.
feel like you mentioned it in terms of like the cars, for example, right? And people seeing that lifestyle and then just assuming, okay, I can just do that. Because I think you mentioned earlier as well, like growing up, your dad didn't take no shit. You just said like you have to do this. If you want this, you need to do this.
Yeah.
And that's obviously shaped your mindset. And one correlation I've seen, because it's funny you mentioned about people not wanting to work jobs. I met these 2 guys a few years back, and they were like, jobs aren't for me. I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, yeah, I'm not made to work a job. So what are you saying? I said, have you ever had a job? He said, I went once for a week. It wasn't for me. I quit. I said, what do you do? I just stay at home. I'm trying to trade. And I feel like when people are too cushioned, they're too comfortable, they're too, whether they've cushioned themselves or they've allowed, or maybe their parents are just looking after them a bit too much, a bit prolonged past when they should, and they lack responsibility. I think that's a dangerous place. I was in that position. A large part of my trading journey, or half of it almost, like 3 years of it, when I was losing money and not making money, was because I was too cushioned. I didn't have much responsibility. I was living at home, so I didn't have really any expenses. I was too cushioned. I had no responsibility. I was quite. I had that self-talk where it was just like, yeah, it's fine. Once I increased the responsibility and I increased sort of the focus on, okay, I need to get after it. I need to be able to succeed because I have to. I have no other choice. Like the dialogue changed and the mindset changed and the circumstances changed. That's when things started to progress. And it wasn't like this. And I think that's the mistake people think is, okay, if I stick at it long enough, one day overnight it's going to change. And it's a weird thing to say because like with the podcast as an example, it's not been overnight, but it's happened in a short period of time, right? And it feels like overnight.
Yeah.
But then what people don't see, and sometimes I forget at times, but luckily, like thanks to Facebook and Instagram, like it shows you your memories, if you will, right? Like 10 years ago. But this has been the journey of everything we mentioned earlier of like for you, for example, it's been the journey of going through the trucking, the sales, anything else and the trading not working out right. For me, it's the same thing. Like I went through, the different business things that I want to do, the trading losses, all of that to get to this point where the trading's working out and the podcast working out, etc. But it's so easy to forget in the moment. And it's so easy in the moment to feel like it happened very quickly when the reality is without all of the 10 years or the 5 years or the 6 years, whatever it may be, and the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands lost or the opportunities, the pain, the tears, whatever, without all of that, it wouldn't be possible to get to this point. And the weirdest thing is, though, I remember when I was 22, 23, the guys in the space who I looked up to at the time turned out to be not very good people in the space. But at the time, they were around this age, like 27, 28. And that's when they were starting to really like pick up steam and stuff. And I was thinking in my head, like, maybe that's what it takes. Like, just be disciplined long enough to when you're around that age, and then you'll probably start to pick up. And that was I remember having that thought. And now when I think back, I'm like, I'm at that age now that they were. And now it's happening. Right. but I had to stay consistent during that time. And I think it's a very important point that you made. And I know you mentioned something earlier, which is a little bit sort of going back to what you were saying, but you said the power of 3 is all you need.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So like, I think everything in ICT is just your way of navigating the power of 3. Like whether you're a short-term trader and you're navigating the weekly power of 3, whether you're a day trader and you're navigating the daily, whether you are a scalper and you're navigating the quarter or the session, whatever you're navigating, it's all the same thing. And that's like one thing people don't understand is like ICT is modular, right? And it goes from the top down. You have to operate in context of the next, time frames, or there's not any one time frame, but like we have, your weekly and daily, and your 1 hour, your 15-minute, and then your 1 minute, your 5 minute. That's what I mainly use, right? And I'll look at the 4 hour too, but not that much. But you're able to, if you understand the power of 3 and which way the weekly candle is expanding, well, you're going to understand that's going to help you build your bias. That's going to help you. It's going to add a confluence. Like let's say if you are the week opens, right? Let's say you've got a weekly fair value gap just below, right? The market's consolidating on Monday. You're going to know to look, if you're bullish in the higher time frames, you're looking for that dip down under the weekly open. That can give you a bearish bias until that happens, right? You can pair that with then going into the daily candle saying, oh, okay, well, London took out Asia highs and we started displacing down. In New York, I know exactly, I'm looking for that low resistance run on liquidity into a fair value gap. And you operate in context of all that, right? You don't necessarily start looking at every single breaker block or order block or fair value gap or every liquidity rate, because you understand the context and the framework that you're operating within. If you understand the power of 3, because it's really, are you, and you also know how to refine when to trade, right? Because we want to trade, for me, during either manipulation or distribution, right? If I'm trading manipulation, I want to see a big rush on liquidity. If I'm trading distribution, I want to see a retracement of the move that occurred after the run on liquidity, right? Ideally, beyond the weekly open, definitely beyond the weekly open or the session open, whatever it is, right? Like if I'm trading futures, I'm just using the morning of the true session open. Shout out today. I don't know if you've seen like the quarterly theory, but that actually is just
got a podcast with him next week.
Nice, bro. That's awesome. I'm basically using that same kind of, it's just, what it is a good way to materialize the power of 3. You know what I'm saying? So I'm using the same exact framework, but on a session level. But if you understand that, you're able to navigate the market a lot better, and you're only going to see one side of it, because it's going to help you have a framework for what your bias is, right? And that's why everybody says time and price, but a lot of people, like few people understand what that means, right? Because with power of 3, it is very time based. And the thing that's nice about that is like price is subjective, no matter what it is, to a certain degree. Time is not. It's either 7:30 a.m. or it's not. You know what I mean? Either we have an opening price, and that's the opening price. There's not two different people who are not going to look at it differently. So I think adding that kind of constant in your strategy can not only help you refine when you trade, but it can help you with the way you determine bias, which is number one, the hardest thing for people. Like so many people fail to understand the value of ICT. Like they look at it like, okay, market structure shift, fair value gaps. And it's like, bro, that is, if it was that easy, everybody would be billionaires off trading. If it was just trading a market structure shift in the morning. And it is as simple as that when you know where to look for it. And you know what days to look for, what days not to look for. You know what sessions to look for, what sessions to expand, what sessions are going to consolidate. You can start to build all these different frameworks if you truly understand the time element of things. So that's why I say it's really all you need. Like if you understand the power of 3, liquidity, market structure shifts, and fair value gaps is quite literally all you need to make money. And of course, risk management and all the nuance. But you get what I'm saying from a technical standpoint.
No, incredible. And there's one thing you mentioned in terms of time and price. There's a big debate. I say big debate. There's a debate on Twitter recently, or X now. I keep forgetting that it's changed.
Yeah,
it's terrible. But a big debate on X of people saying like you don't need time, just price. So what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think you need time. I don't think anyone needs ICT. I don't think you need, there's 1,000 different ways to make money. So I think that it's kind of like silly for people that say like one way is better than the other, or this is the only way, or ICT said this. It's like, you got to think and be a little bit more logical and understand that this little like realm we're all in with ICT, it's not like the only realm people are making money. You know what I mean? Like we have multi-millionaire options traders that don't even understand a lick of ICT. So it's not, you don't need anything. That's why I think it's all silly. I don't understand when people argue. I mean, I get it. People, it's controversy. and controversy grabs attention and people, are building their brands. I don't hate on it. I just think that it's on a, real level. Like if we're sitting here talking about it, I think it's silly. You know what I mean? So, I don't see why if something works for you, why you need to prove it to somebody else. I mean, obviously people are selling stuff, right? Like, I mean, I sell mentorship. Everybody's selling a mentorship. We understand that. I'm not hating on it. But whenever people kind of try to go outward and say like, my way is better than your way, in my opinion, it's a little bit of a red flag because it's like insecurity in a sense. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's kind of the way that I see it. But I think it's silly.
Yeah. No, it's fair enough. I think like you said, in terms of controversy, it obviously works. There's a reason why it keeps popping up, and especially within our space as well, it happens a lot. But I think also that, people, they get too associated. Like obviously ICT, for example, like he has a lot of people who are very cult-like mentality, and they're sort of very fixated, even though he's not the one doing the arguing most of the time. It's a lot of his followers or traders, and I think people sort of give into that, and I feel like people just don't see. Yeah, we try and highlight it on the podcast. Like, there's a reason why these controversial things happen. It's like the trailers. Sometimes we have trailers that are very, what people call clickbait. But in my opinion, a trailer is clickbait. That's the whole point. Like a movie trailer is also clickbait. It makes you want to go watch it. That's the point of it, right?
Right.
But I try and highlight. I don't try and hide it. I don't try and be like, no, it's not. This is just a reel. It's just a video. I understand that. Hey, look, we've done this to get the people there. But I think it's also important to be try and be balanced in some way. So that's not who you are. That's not your persona. I feel like there are people out there that's all their thing. Their thing is just to be controversial 24/7. That's fair enough. Like, if that's what you want to do, that's cool. But I feel like it's you have to expect you're going to rub people the wrong way. And I can't imagine it's a nice way to live day to day. Just all this like barrage of hate or arguments, and it's not a way to live, I don't think. I always find it strange. I don't know if you ever seen that random post, not even trading related, where people are arguing in the comments with strangers. I've always found it the funniest thing. Like, where do you get the time? Like, how do you have the energy to argue with a stranger in the comments? Like if someone ever puts like some sort of hate or anything like that on anything that I do, I might reply once and that's it. I will never reply like over and over and I go back and forth, because as soon as it starts to look like that, I'm gone. I'm finished. I'm leaving that conversation. Because it doesn't hold anything. Like it's a waste of that energy and time. But in terms of the power of three though, and what you mentioned there as well, you mentioned what I thought was very good in terms of like the storytelling aspect. And you mentioned earlier that you've done the support resistance, you've done the harmonics, you've done all these different styles, and then the narrative building. How important was it, or how helpful was it to have a system that told a story, can build a narrative on, for you to then be more disciplined and essentially become more profitable?
It's paramount, man. It's paramount because I think that humans in general are creatures of purpose, in the sense, like, let's say if like at a good company, somebody will teach you how to be the best at your position and tell you why it's important to the company, right? Because then you're going to understand like, hey, like this actually matters. What I'm doing matters. Whereas if you say like, hey, do this is your job, report to me and done. Those people may do it, but they're not going to excel at it unless they're just trying to excel on their own. But as a rule, you don't have that purpose behind it. You don't have the why. And the same with trading, right? Like it's like people want mechanical models. They want to have, this easy thing. But if you don't have purpose in something, I think that there's just kind of an unexplainable benefit that you get from having that perspective, because you're operating within this narrative. You're patient. You know exactly what you're looking for, and you're waiting on it. And it's not always going to play out. Like the thing that I think a lot of people struggle with is like they struggle with doing that. They struggle with having the discipline to like be that patient, put that much work into it, and then whenever it doesn't work one or two times, they're like, to hell with it. I'm going back to my old ways. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people think like, oh, like I've cracked it. I'm gonna, I now understand like this is how I'm gonna make it. And then they think that that's just gonna give them security. And now they just know how to trade. They're not gonna take losses. They're not gonna be wrong. Like I'll get, like when I work with people, sometimes they'll be like, what did I do wrong here? I'm like, what makes you think you did something wrong? Well, the trade lost. That doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Now, a lot of times when people are learning, they are doing something wrong. But the perspective I think a lot of people have is that, once you just learn to trade, it's just, push buttons. You're right. You know where the market's. It's like whenever you're at the holidays and people ask you like, what's the market going to do? What's the stock market going to do? Or like, what's the economy going to do? I'm like, well, I can tell you what I think, but they think that you're like an expert and you just know. right? Or like people always come to you trying to like get you like invest money for them,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But
Do you feel like I've obviously come across a lot of traders over my time, and I've seen a lot of people do hopping, strategy hopping. But normally when we talk about it, it's people because I did this strategy, it didn't work. Move on to the next. Didn't work. Move on to the next. But I've also seen a theme of people where they went on a strategy and it worked. They got results, but then they hopped anyway. And then the next one worked, but they got results, but they hopped anyway. And the mentality that I've gotten in terms of the lesson of why they do that is because they assume that there's going to be a strategy that they come across eventually that they can read the market like a book. Like you said, like they can just buy and sell, make money, and they know where it's going. Like it's going to go there, then it's going to go there, then it's going to go there. They assume that that exists and essentially searching for the Holy Grail. Have you sort of seen that yourself? Have you seen any people trying to do that or be that way? And what do you think the reality of trading is? Is there a point where you can read the market like a book?
Let's take a break for a minute there, guys, because I want to tell you about the best trading tool on the market, TradeZella. The reason why TradeZella is the #1 trading tool that every trader needs is because you can do backtesting, automated journaling, trade replay, in-depth analytics, and so much more. And the greatest part about TradeZella is that it's all automated. All you have to do is connect your MT4 and MT5. It will pull all your data onto the dashboard. You can add playbooks. You can just add notes. You can add images from your trades, and you can get the insights that is necessary for you to progress as a trader. Now, TradeZella is for absolutely everyone. Whether you're a crypto trader, whether you're a Forex trader, whether you trade prop firms, it is for absolutely everyone. And that is why thousands of traders have signed up using my link here through the podcast. Make sure you use the code RIZ10 for 10% off your monthly subscription, or WOR for 20% off your yearly subscription. The link is in the description below. And let's get back to the episode.
No, I think that everybody that I'm seeing that is not successful, that has been around trading long enough, that's what they do. You can see on YouTube, like comments, what's a new model? Can this work on this? Like I've shown stuff that like people are commenting like, yeah, this is amazing. It works great. But can I use this on crypto? I'm like, it says in the video, it's just for NASDAQ, or, and I think people are kind of just, they're neophytes, right? It was what it comes down to. Like the people that do that. And they're greedy. And like you said, their expectations are wrong. And again, I think that a lot of the times people don't succeed at trading. It's just simply because they don't understand what that even means. Like they think that, like you said, that they're just going to be able to read the market, which to answer, no, I don't think that's ever possible, right? I think that a lot of people get that idea from ICT, even though he has said multiple times that he's wrong. People don't want to hear that. They look at it like God. Like God is telling, like this is God of trading. And I see his execution videos and he is insanely precise. And it's like, he tells you that he does take losses, right? Yes, some people are much more consistent than others, right? We all know that, but there is no one who is just all the time. There isn't, you know what I mean? And that doesn't mean like there's days like where ICT said something against, like I would be in the Discord, I'm signaling off a trade and they're like, oh, ICT is shorting and I'm buying. Like sometimes that's, I was wrong, got stopped out. Sometimes I was right. Does that like make me a better trader than ICT? People will, but people think like that. It's just like, it's a game of probabilities, and people that don't understand that is where most of their psychological issues, most of their strategy hopping issues, and most of their unsuccess is going to come from, is because you can't succeed at something if you don't understand what success is, right? Success in trading, because so many people lose money. If you can just simply make money consistently, whether you're trading ICT or not, you've won. Now it's just time to optimize, right? It's not time to say like, oh, well, I'm making, 1 to 2 hour a month. Like, how do I make 10 hour a month? Because then, you form everything in trading. I look at it like you have like this mental equity. It's like a health bar in a video game or something, right? The more that you go out of the way and do things you're not supposed to do, or put yourself in positions you're not supposed to be in and take losses that you're not supposed to take, the more you do that, you drain yourself. Like let's say if you have a profitable strategy and you're trading consistently and you start getting greedy, you see other people doing, better, like you think they're doing better. And then you say, oh, I'm going to go learn from this guy. I'm going to change my strategy. Well, even if you, like, let's say you go into it, you go through that normal learning curve. Now your confidence is dented. Now you are starting to lose money, right? Even though before you were making money. Now, like, even if you go back into go back into that old strategy, you're still going to lose at that strategy for a little bit too, because your confidence is now dented. So like your health bar is getting lower and lower. Does that make sense? You know, like, so I'm a big believer in figuring out what works for you, because there's no one strategy that works for anybody either, or for everybody. I mean, figuring out what works for you, and then figure out how you can refine it, figure out how you can optimize it. And I think it's funny, like you talk to so many people who are trying to learn to trade. And I always say like this, I'm like, okay, how do you think it sounds to take two trades a week? They're both 2R. You win one and lose one. And just that's the only thing you can do. They're like, well, is there a way to like make it more trades? I'm like, well, how much money are you making right now a month? They're like, well, I'm not making any money. I'm like, so you wouldn't be happy with making 4% a month? Like, think about it. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, when people want to make more than that. But I mean, that should be
but it's so true though, because like people will be break even or losing.
Yeah.
But if you give them that scenario, or let's say they could quite easily, by being disciplined, make that sort of amount, they'll forego it because they'll be like you said, I want 10%.
Yeah.
I want 20%. One thing in terms of that though, how important is scaling your capital been? Because like 4% a month on, let's say, $1,000.
Right. Yeah.
It's hard to be motivated with that, right?
Yeah.
Of course, the skill set is all that matters, because you apply the same skill set to large capital. Of course, it makes a difference. But how important has it been for you in terms of discipline and success within your journey of when you've scaled capital?
So I think a big benefit for me, like coming into trading, is I wasn't a stranger to like handling large capital. Like it's like something Kyle talks about, Jade Cap, for those who don't know Kyle, but
it's like you,
right,
Jesse.
I know, right? Yeah, but like he used to manage so much money, way more than I was managing, like way more, for like the real estate stuff he was doing. And I think that there's just something about those numbers. Like it's like how people use social trader tools and will trade better if they have a 100K account linked to 5 other 100K accounts, other than seeing like 500K and being up, 20K on a position, which is, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh my God, this is crazy. You know what I mean? But it's like, it's just a kind of a psychology thing. So whenever I came into trading, like I had made a lot of money, I had lost a lot of money. You know what I mean? So I think that was a big thing in terms of like the psychology of scaling, and also like kind of the what I was setting a goal for. Like I'll tell people, like I've talked to people that like, they're like, well, yeah, I'm like, what are your goals of trading? And they're saying like, I just want to make, I'm like long-term goals, like long-term big picture goals. They're like, I just want to make like an extra like $500, $800 a month. I'm like, you're lying. If that's what you want to do, you'd go drive DoorDash. You can make that much driving DoorDash, right? So I'm like, that's not what your real goals are. So you need to understand like your goals are going to be much higher, and you have to kind of like prepare yourself for those big numbers. Prepare yourself. Like you're about to be taking risks, dude. Like, yeah, we talk about risk management a lot, but risk management is managing the big risk, and that is trading, because that you can lose everything. Like you can lose your challenge, right? Like I always tell people, don't buy a challenge with money that you wouldn't lose. Like I've had people say, I have $1,000 to my name or something. I'm about to go homeless. I have kids, and what's your advice for me like on this challenge? I'm like, don't buy it. Go get a job. That's my advice to you. You know what I mean? So kind of preparing yourself mentally to lose whatever it is that you have at risk, whether it's your, evaluation fee or your whole personal account. Like obviously we don't want that to happen, but you have to think like that. And once you do that, scaling capital is going to be much easier, right? I couldn't imagine, honestly, coming into trading, never having handled a lot of money and having funded accounts at my disposal. I would have been a degenerate, honestly. I know it would have taken me a long time to get out of that. I would, because people say, oh, it's just $100. It's just $500. Ding, 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 ding. Run it up, run it. Now it's like, okay, how many little $500 did you spend? You know what I mean? And going back to like what you're saying, like about not caring, like I said, like you said, like I forget, people won't take that with common, like I mean that with common sense. Like don't care in the sense, like accept the risk. Don't just be like, oh, Casper said don't care, like 5% risk.
No, but it's true though. It's like, don't get attached to the outcome. So don't care about the outcome. Focus on it's kind of going back to what Twist was saying, like focus on your performance. Don't like put so much worry on the outcome. Don't give a fuck about the outcome. Don't care what other people say, etc. But of course, care enough to not put yourself in a very negative position, right? Don't get me wrong. Like people obviously come into trading for the money and the freedom, right? It's 100% the truth. And it's not to say that, hey, you're not going to have to take some big risks. So like, maybe you're putting in some money that you shouldn't maybe put in there, right? But not everything. Right, so with that example of, let's say you only got $1,000, that person shouldn't put anything in at all. But let's say you got $4,000, right? Maybe that person could put in 500 into some form of education, 500 into some form of a personal account, or into a challenge, because they built the skill set. That's what matters most, right? I've met so many people where they haven't built the skill set, but they're buying challenges anyway. Yeah, and that's just gambling, because you haven't got the skill set. So I remember I've said this many times on the pod. Like I've known one guy, he's never seen the profit target, but he kept buying challenges. He's never made the profit target on a demo account, on a paper account. He's never. And I asked him, I said, like, have you ever seen 10% in 30 days back when there was a time limit in 30 days? No. He says, so why are you buying challenges for? That doesn't make sense, right? But of course, like the reality is that you're going to have to take risk. Like you're coming into this journey to change your life, to accelerate, to build your income stream. So there will be an element where, you know, the preferred risk is that you can afford to lose it, or it's only, let's say, 10% of your overall net worth, whatever it may be. So in the beginning, when you're starting out and you're on the lower levels of the financial ladder, yeah, your risk might be 20%, 30%, something you're comfortable with. But I think it comes back to what you said about not giving a fuck, where it's a case like if you've made that choice, you have to actually accept that choice.
Yes.
So you can't give a fuck now because you've decided to make that choice, right? So if you then lose it, let's say, for any reason, God forbid, you're not allowed to then be down about it because you made the choice in the first place. You know, and I think that comes back to what you were saying about not giving a fuck. Like you have to let go of that emotion that comes with it. Yeah, it's going to suck and yeah, you won't be happy about it. But, you know, to then make the choice and then feel down about it doesn't make sense either, you know?
Right. No, I agree 100%, man. Like, and, you know, touching on what you said about there is always some element of risk for sure. And as long as it's not like crippling, that's the way I look at it. Like me and Omar were talking about this, and it's like, if you have other supplemental income, and it's like, okay, you know, yeah, if you lose this challenge, like what's going to happen? Because you know, I always put it like this as well to people whenever like they're really afraid to lose their challenge. I'm like, what's going to happen if you lose your challenge? Like, why are you so afraid? There's going to be two outcomes of that. I'm fucked, or, oh, well, I'll lost a couple $100. So I'm like, is a couple $100 really as damaging to you? Or is it the idea of failing? The idea of not being a good trader, right? And people like value themselves based off their trading performance. And it's like the ultimate fear, like, God forbid I fail this evaluation. Then I'm a bad trader. Then all this work I did was for nothing. My people are gonna be disappointed in me. You know, and I think too, like, I understand that too well too, because like coming from a person that is like whenever I was kind of coming up as a content creator, I was doing a lot of like how I came up was live trading, just all live trading every single day, 5 days a week. The mental strain that puts on you is a lot, right? So like I learned that a lot, and see like, okay, like you have to not care to lose to do well, because if you have any kind of like external pressure on yourself, whether it's from your internal dialogue that, you know, losing is like, you know, Armageddon almost, you know what I mean? Then it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And like the same thing, like if losing your funded account means like your family is going to be like, you're gonna have to go take a loan out or something, like you've already lost most of the time. You know what I mean? But you do have to take risks, like calculated risks. There's no way you're going to be able to change your life without doing that, for sure.
In terms of challenges, I know you do futures firms, right?
Yeah.
And they're set up a bit differently from what I know. I don't know too much about them, but I know they're set up quite differently to the sort of CFD evaluation firms. Have you done like CFD evaluation firms?
Yeah.
So
I had MFF accounts. Yeah.
The one and only. Of course.
Hopefully they're coming back. Who knows?
Yeah, I think they will. I think they'll come back. It'll be.
I don't know if they're going to give the accounts. We'll see about that part.
Yeah, it'll be like that's
that
true.
One was questionable.
That's true. Yeah, but like it'll be like a Royal Rumble event. You know, like when like the guy who hasn't been in the WWE for 3 years suddenly just comes back. How did you handle your evaluations? Like, was there a particular style of trading that you did, or a particular strategy that you would implement for the evaluation side, and how did you scale that?
So yeah, futures firms are definitely harder. Honestly, they are. They're harder. But they're harder if you approach them in the same sense that you approach a CFD firm, right? Like they're two totally different monsters, because a lot of them have trailing drawdown of some sort, some worse than others. Like some of them, they literally will trail with your open unrealized, which to me, that's just predatory, right? Like it is. I don't care what people say. They'll say it's like, oh, we're just encouraging you to be risk man. That's not reality. Like even like big firms, they allocate for people to go and just, you know, they're not, if you trade for like, let's say like SMB Capital or some real firm, like huge firm, you know, you're not going to just get cut if you go into a trailing drawdown of 2% or something. Oh, you're fired. It's just not realistic. So those, stay away from those. I'm not going to name drop, but I think everybody knows, you know, the ones that do that. But then even like some will have like a trailing drawdown to like your account balance, which is still tough. That's a little bit less predatory in my opinion than like trailing up with your unrealized open positions. But the thing with futures, like to be honest, you have to be a little bit more risky, and people are going to be like, oh, whoa. talk about risk, but like getting into props, this is another thing that I think that a lot of people don't understand is like you have to learn to play the game of props. Trading prop is not the same as trading personal.
Mhm.
It is just not, right? You have to be more aggressive on challenges. Like what I do is like I scale my risk up with profits and I scale it down with drawdown. So like for example, like let's say if I start at 150K, right? That's like the funded account size that I've been doing. Like if I'm taking a new challenge, like if I go into a drawdown, I'll stop trading 2 contracts, just trade 1,
Mhm.
right? If I get into 2% per, well, not, I look at like your profit target. I break it down into like pieces. So like futures profit targets are a lot different.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're not 10%. They're
Mhm.
lower, but they're also their drawdowns less
Yeah.
too. It's
Mhm.
proportional. It's like the same proportion. So I'll break it down into, if I'm 2 trades into profit of 2R, so to speak, of what I'm risking, I'll then elevate my risk to 2R per trade.
Mhm.
So it's like a escalator almost. Like if I'm up, I start increasing risk.
Yeah.
Right. That doesn't work for all strategies, but my strategy, like I try to keep my win rate 60 to 70%, right? Because I'm pretty picky. You know what I mean? I don't really trade a lot. I take like 3 to 5 trades a week at the most, really closer to like 3 trades a week.
Yeah.
There's sometimes I don't even take a trade all week.
Yeah.
But I don't watch the market all day either. Like you said, it's hard to whenever you're busy doing, other stuff, you're traveling, doing whatever. But and another thing with futures, you can't swing trade. You have to close all your positions at the end of the day.
Okay.
So I think that puts a lot of stress on people too.
Is that futures as a whole or just the firms?
The firms. Okay. Yeah, no. You can definitely swing futures personal. And that's what I've been leaning to more lately is trading futures on a personal account.
Okay.
And I think that should be most people's goal is transitioning from prop to personal just for many multitude of reasons. Like props are a great tool. You should always use them,
Mhm.
but like then compound it. You know what I mean? But I guess the strategy for futures, you have to trade low time frames. Like, I mean, I'm sure there are other people out there using 15-minute executions. Not with ICT, you're either on the 5-minute or the 1 minute, most likely, just
Mhm.
because the risk, because NASDAQ. So think of it like this: if you're trading CFDs and you're trading with a contract size of 1 on like NASDAQ, every one contract, like every NQ contract, is like a 20 lot.
Mhm.
And you can't like adjust your position. It's either 20, 40, 60, because it's 20 points of risk or $20 of risk per point, $40 risk per point, $60 risk per point. Or you go all the way down to the micros, which are 1/10 of that.
Mhm.
So the position sizing is different. Like Forex or CFDs, you can size your position really calculated around your risk. Like, you can get it down to the decimal if you're
Mhm.
using a calculator.
Yeah.
Futures can't really do that. Futures, you got to be like, okay, like every 10 points, I'm risking $400. You might have a little bit more risk on some positions than others, which kind of can make it a little harder to keep your data in
Mhm.
line. But I would say the biggest difference is you have to trade the lower time frames. And you have to be a little bit more aggressive because the fees are cheaper too, though. So it's like there's a whole game to it. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people misunderstand props as like they look at it like, oh, like this is my ticket to my career in trading. Like I'm about to become a firm trader,
Mhm.
and it's like you're taking. I mean, at the end of the day, you're coming in, and at the end of the day, we're all professional gamblers. We don't want to admit that.
Yeah.
Traders are professional gamblers. Every one of us, we definitely have ways to educate ourselves to have better odds than
Mhm.
going to the casino. But the mentality is very similar, right? So you have to know how to whatever game you're playing.
Would you say the mentality is identical?
It is identical. That's why you have people like Jared Tendler. He started out coaching poker players.
Mhm.
And now he coaches traders at some of the biggest firms in the world and, just all through the space. So
Mhm.
it's like, because it's probabilities. Again, it's going back to understanding what success really looks like and understanding that your job is to have an edge, not to understand always what's going on. But, your edge is going to be like, for example, like let's say a professional poker player and a professional blackjack player. They both have the same mentality in a sense, but you're not going to go, it's not the same game.
Yeah, like the poker can't go to the blackjack can't go to the poker.
Yeah, it's just a different strategy. I mean, it's a different
strategies,
game,
yeah.
a whole
Mhm.
different game, because poker, you're playing against other people.
Would you say it's similar, like, CFD trader isn't just going to jump into futures and be able to do exactly what the same thing?
I mean, I think that if you're good at trading CFDs, I think that you can be good at trading futures. And like, if you're a veteran, like you can make the jump from either one or
Mhm.
it's very simple. It's like position sizing your risk. And
Yeah.
that's really what the difference is. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And like your what you're using to execute
Yeah.
on. So, but the firm strategies, that's what I'm saying. It's like 2 different tables you're at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
The CFD firms are a lot different than the futures firms in terms of strategy, just like it's different than a personal account.
Yeah.
Just like a challenge should be treated differently than your live funded
Mhm.
account. Or just like maybe your fourth or fifth account should be treated differently than your first.
Mhm.
Like I always teach people, you got to look at it like a business. Like if you buy your first funded account, your only goal on that account is just to get the first payout, dude.
Mhm.
Just beat the odds, get that first payout, get your money back. Now you got some more capital. Now maybe on that second account, maybe you're a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
Maybe once you got 3 or 4 accounts, now you're up in profits. You're like, okay, I'm feeling really good this month. I see the market is very clear. It's giving me a lot of good setups. And this takes time to know. There's a fine line between correctly doing this or telling yourself you're doing it and getting like aggressive and gambling.
Yeah.
But it all comes with time.
How would you distinguish that? Those moments?
Honestly, man, I think that is something that you just learn about yourself. And that is something that nothing but the markets can teach you. And nothing but messing up can teach you. And having humility. I think a lot of it is like you said earlier about ego. You never should try to like kill the ego, but you have to be aware of it.
Mhm.
You have to be aware. And just like fear, you never can kill fear.
Mhm.
You have to be aware of it.
100%.
You have to be like, I always have like mental checks and I kind of write down, like, you know how, like, do you ever journal?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you journal, you know how like you'll set out an intention, like I'm going to be more calm in my day to day, or I'm going to be more focused. Like whenever you start to break against that, your mind will literally remember you writing that.
Yeah.
It does you know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
that's just something about writing stuff down. And I do
So
that.
like accountability's there.
Yes.
you know?
You're like, oh, like you got the chance. You're right here. Now it's time to implement all that fun stuff, all the this stuff that spikes your dopamine when you're thinking about doing it. Like
Mhm.
now you're here to do it. Are you going to do it? Same thing with trading. Like if you write down, like I'm going to maintain, awareness. I'm going to be calm throughout the day, this and that. You're more likely to have those mental checks. Like throughout the day, I'll be like say if I take a losing trade, I always will be like, okay, like zoom out for a second. Think about what you just did. Think about like, did that make sense? Was that a good loss? Was it not? Understand that now you're a little bit more likely to go maybe do something that you shouldn't do.
Mhm.
And that awareness will kind of disarm all of those, little demons. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like data helps as well then with that?
Yeah, it gives you
that process?
rational confidence. That's something I'm big on too, is like a lot of people be like, yeah, I have no confidence. I'm like, why? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, what's your strategy? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, well, yeah, you shouldn't have confidence. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So like data can help in the sense like, and this is really the only good use of like I like for back testing, I think a lot of people become like back testing warriors. Like
Mhm.
they'll be like, yeah, I back tested the strategy for like 20,000 trades over the
Yeah.
last 20 years. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, how much money have you made? They're like, well, I'm still fine tuning it.
Mhm.
I'm like, have fun.
Mhm.
It's gonna be different.
It's really interesting because like over the last few months, I think because of the growth of the podcast, I have a lot of people coming up to me now, in random locations. And they'll ask ever so often someone will say to me like, can I ask you a question? You've spoken to so many traders, what do you, just basically advice, like what should I do? And a lot of the time the scenario they're painting towards me is similar to what you said there. Like I've been back testing, or the one that's really reoccurring is, I was doing a strategy and it was working out, but then like it changed, like something happened, and then, it's not, I've not got that consistency yet. And usually I'll ask them like, do you have a trading plan? Like, or do you have like an entry model? And they're like, no, what is that? Or like, no, I don't. I just, I'm trying different things. And that's all I ever say to them is like, let's just have an entry model first. Like that's the foundation of it. If you don't have an entry model, you don't know what you're doing day to day. With the entry model, obviously comes the trading plan, the trade management plan. Like, so it's all fixated. Like as much decisions are predetermined before you actually execute a trade. Once you have all that, then it's obviously your discipline, right? And that's why I always try and tell them. And it's still shocking to me how many people are trading without that. As you said, like they're trading without a strategy. And it is just the ultimate form of gambling. Have you found that as well? Obviously, I know I was there, in my journey. So it's not like it's just like unique to these people. I was there too. But have you found that's still like a reoccurring theme?
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Like I think that most people that aren't trading successfully and they're newer, it's kind of like whenever you're a kid and like maybe you're skateboarding or something and somebody's like, wear a helmet.
Mhm.
You're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Nobody does that. You know what I mean? And then you look and realize like, oh, like a lot of pro skaters when they're actually doing like the big jumps and they're wearing helmets.
Mhm.
And it's like the sense of like, whenever I talk to somebody who's new at trading, I'm like, yeah, the route you take, best route is to, get a model, study some stuff,
Mhm.
back test it just a little bit, prove you understand it, trade it on a demo so you're actually seeing the market unfold, then transition to a really small amount, then transition to, maybe your funded challenge or like your personal account.
Mhm.
I was like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Nobody's doing that. I didn't do that. You know what I mean? It's like you're saying like, so like the same thing I understand. It's the same thing with like a defined strategy. People hear like it's trading model. They're like, oh yeah, okay, dude, I'm gonna watch another YouTube video and then I'll go take what I learned and just look at the market and say, oh, it looks like it's going up or it looks like it's going down, push buttons, and then wonder why it's not working. They think that like that's kind of like what people actually do, and there are people that do like that. Like I mean, I try to discretion to be honest sometimes too, but I have like a framework that I'm operating within. Yeah, like you said, the first thing that people need to do that aren't that don't have a trading model is just start writing down their process, because it's I think it's I don't know if it's a Ralph Emerson. It's a quote, and it's like if you can't explain what you're doing, then if you can't like write down the process of what you're doing, then you don't know what you're doing. It's kind of like one of those things like, yeah, well, that's obvious. It's not that obvious. So like common sense isn't that common, and a lot of people fail to do that in trading. And it all goes back to like kind of what I was saying earlier too. Like, who are you to think that you don't have to do that and still succeed in the hardest game ever played statistically? Like, if you can't just do that simple thing, like, why are you here?
Yeah. So it's like a lot of it does come down to what you said there. It's like you're just doing what is necessary. There isn't going to be a hack. There isn't like a podcast episode that you'll watch that's going to change your entire life. Like you might learn something, but there's still all the work that has to be done. You can't avoid it. It's not avoidable. The experiences you have to go through, the lessons you have to adapt to, obviously off the back of those experiences, like you can't avoid that process. It's, I think, like you said, not giving a fuck and just, would you say submitting to the time horizon is important? So I know Umar Ashraf talks about it a lot in terms of, people coming in with very short-term mindset. And that's why he gets kind of annoyed with some influencers like painting a picture of a short-term mindset of like, essentially it's a get rich quick type of thing, while he is more of the mindset of like 10 years, give yourself 10 years in this. You might end up achieving it in 2 or 3, but you're willing to go the 10, right? And it's not about just being around for 10 and something works out. It's obviously being intentful with your actions during those 10 years. But what is your thought process in terms of the mindset, the time horizon that you should be setting yourself or coming into trading with?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Like when I came into it, I kind of think you just have to submit to time, and you have to also submit like, hey, this might never work for you. You know what I mean? And like fully accept that, just like any business endeavor. You know what I mean? Like if you go into anything and say like, this has to work, or like if this doesn't work in 6 months or a year, like then I'm done. A lot of times you're just going to rob yourself and it's one of those like indirect things. Like, are you directly robbing yourself by just cutting the line at 1 year and like maybe you're about to achieve success a month later? I mean, maybe, but the big thing that you're robbing yourself of is the true journey and like the true apprenticeship model. Like in the medieval times, for example, people had to go through apprenticeships of 7 years to do stuff. 7 years, right? Of like to be a blacksmith. You know what I mean? And I think the concept of mastery was much more appreciated back then. And like that is completely dissolved in our day and age. And like you said, people come into it. It's like this thing we were talking about earlier where people, they don't have a job because they say a job's not for me, right? And they've never really put in any work. They just want to have trading because they view it as some easy thing. And when you come into the game with that mindset and you don't have that long-term vision, everything else is clouded. You're building a house of cards on stilts. You know what I mean? You might do good. You might have beginner's luck, but as soon as you get punched in the face, now you're just going to turn into like a gambling addict. You know what I mean? And that's why trading has like ruined a lot of lives, is because people come into it with that mentality.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like I think 100% you have to just submit the time and just submit also that it just might not even work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think it's interesting what you said there as well. And just reflecting on it quickly is like, for example, to become a doctor, just the studying side alone is about, I know in the UK, it's about 5-6 years, just studying side, let alone actually being, you might have the title of a doctor, but in terms of being like a specialist and then actually being like considered a great doctor in that sense, probably looking at 10 years, if that, maybe more. Let's look at like, Kobe Bryant or these NBA players, same thing. Like when they started, they all tell the stories of being shit, right? And during like a period of 5 to 10 years of practicing and drills and games to then eventually being called the GOAT, and I think it's the same with like football or soccer, right? Same principle there, like Ronaldo or Messi, like I'm sure at one point they were just a kid kicking a ball and probably wasn't that good. But 10 years of kicking that same ball over and over again with no actual idea of if they would make it to the big leagues, but the passion and the intention and the discipline to keep going at it and working at it is what led them there. And it's the same with trading. I think I've always said that success is just a blueprint, right? So I don't think trading itself has a particular specific blueprint that is specific to trading. I think it's just success as a whole. And I think it comes down to the things that we've really highlighted in this podcast of the time horizon, the mindset, the internal dialogue, the financial foundation in terms of, not just risking it all for Accenture. I think it's so important for people to really take that on board. I don't think this podcast there will be some people who listen to it and they'll take note on it and that start taking action. But there'll be a lot of people who are just doing the same thing that we talked about earlier, where they're just watching another thing to think, this is going to change my life.
Yeah.
But I feel like, what would your thought process be? My thought process would be that you can change your life off the back of this episode or this ICT video or whatever it may be, if you choose to.
Yeah. No, I always say like this. Watching 100 videos won't do anything for you, but applying what you learn from 5 might. Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, think about it. Like, really, when you get down to it, and like you go through like your whole journey, and you kind of like full circle. Like, if I look at all the stuff that I consumed to now, I use such a little percent of that. And like, I didn't know that at that time. And like, I honestly believe that, kind of like what you were saying way earlier about, people say not to do things, but you have to kind of go experience it first. Like, so like, I think that there's going to be the people who are maybe more at that time where they're ready to take action. So, and they might have had some aha moment and just had like a paradigm shift. And that's because that's where they're at. You know what I mean? And then there might be someone who just started trading a month or two ago and they may not be there yet. And, and there's nothing necessarily like wrong with that. Like, oh, you suck. But like, you have to be aware of that. And like, I hope the people that are at that point, the latter of those, they hear that and they're like, yeah, that might be me. And that's like the first step into starting to shift to like taking action and realizing like, it's not about the amount of like content you consume or the amount of new strategies you learn or new courses you buy or new Discords you join. It's really just about the amount of time you take into actually becoming a successful person, like you said. And it's like, like I don't see anybody who's a very successful trader who I wouldn't classify as an elite individual. And when I say that, I don't mean financially only. I mean mentally. I mean the way they hold themselves high, their self-respect, their standards, the way they treat other people. You know what I mean? It's an identity, right? Like, you should be setting the goal. Again, going back to another, setting the goal to be a good trader, right? What is a good trader? It's not, setting that goal doesn't necessarily just mean trading. It means like the kind of person you are, kind of lifestyle you live. I'm not saying you have to wake up at 3 a.m. and run 15 miles and cold plunge for 10 minutes or whatever. Like, a lot of people think that you have to be crazy extreme, but it's really just,
I think going to something that happened this week for you, I don't know if it was here or somewhere else, sorry, but you were at a location and you forgot your gym attire.
Yeah.
So therefore you started working out in, what are slacks, by the way? I think that's an American thing. I don't
know. These. Like, just like dress pants, basically.
So yeah, so you started working out in slacks.
Yeah.
But you could have easily had the mindset of, can't work out now. I don't have my gym clothes.
Oh, it's Christmas Eve. We are visiting family. Oh, I'm visiting family. Oh, just take off. But it's just like, and again, like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong if you did that, right? But I just take more joy in not doing that. Like, again, I get to be like, I look at it and I'm so grateful I'm like that. Like, that is 100% what I attribute all of my success to, is just being like what some people call is crazy. Like, I'm like at my girl's family's house, like waking up like early, like, yeah, I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm wearing slacks. Even that's like, they're probably think I'm crazy. But I don't care. I know like the fulfillment that gives me is more powerful than the little bit of comfort I'm gonna get from being able to play on my phone and sleep in.
Well, I think that's what counts.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, consistency in trading. What is that? That's discipline over and over again, right? I think the one thing with trading that is separate to the other things, earlier I mentioned obviously that, the success blueprint is pretty much universal. But the one thing that is in trading, that let's say for the gym, for example, is if you did have a rest day, it's probably not going to overall affect your result, right? But with trading, there are no rest days, right? With like, if you have a routine and a plan, you have to stick to that. Because let's say, like you said, you wake up and you're meant to do your pre-market analysis. You skip your pre-market analysis. You just turn up when the market's opening. Then the kill zone's just started. What's the likelihood of you knowing the daily bias for that day? What's the likelihood of you sticking to your trading plan? What is the likelihood? It's probably very slim, because you're probably now going to come in without doing your pre-market analysis and just saying, it looks like it's going down. And that's the day, no matter, even if you've been disciplined for the last 6 months, right? You stuck to that plan for the last 6 months. That's the day where you end up going on tilt, blowing your account, losing your funding, losing your personal account, whatever it may be. And that's the reality in trading, which is different to other endeavors. So I think, as you mentioned, like, yeah, okay, it might not change the world if you didn't decide to go gym that day. But I think the saying goes, like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I think trading really reflects that massively. Is like, you could easily snooze and just miss the pre-market analysis that day. But that one little thing in trading can be the difference between you losing that account or keeping that longevity going, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And it's like, I read this in a book. It was the Personal MBA, super good book. I highly recommend it. But
you say personal MBA?
MBA, super good book, like very, very good book. I think it's a little older, like, but not crazy old, but it's just one of those timeless books. You know what I mean? But it was talking about, I can't remember like the name of the concept, but it was something about like permanency of like the effect of things you're doing, in the sense like a lot of businesses fail not by huge black swan events. It's by small things over time that didn't do anything when they happened, and everybody's like, nah, whatever, it's fine, and they accumulate. And it's the same thing with life or anything like trading. Like for example, like let's say you have a good strategy that is profitable at 2R, but you get scared and take your profit or move your stops to break even every trade. Just that small little thing over time is going to make you not profitable. Or just like in life, like maybe you just take 2 days off a week, or you sleep in when you told yourself you weren't going to sleep in. Like if you don't set a goal to wake up early, that whatever. But if you set a goal to wake up early and you don't, or you set a goal to start going to the gym and you have all these that's why here come all the New Year's resolution, right? We got a couple days coming. And people like do themselves a disjustice by saying, oh, I'm going to set a New Year's resolution, and then not sticking to that. Because what you're doing is you're cementing to yourself that you're not a person of your word to yourself, which is the most important word. You know what I mean? So I think that building that persona, and again, it comes back to like confidence, like not just in trading, but in life. Like I think Hormozy said this too. It's kind of like what I was saying about trading. Like you shouldn't be confident, but some people are like, you really shouldn't be confident. Like, and that's like kind of the tough love. Like you should like always respect yourself, but like maybe if you've not done anything in life, why would you be super confident? Like, why are you entitled to that? Go do something. And it doesn't have to become a millionaire or something. You could go just maybe get in shape a little bit better. Maybe start reading every day. Maybe start your side hustle, start whatever it is that you've been wanting to start, do those things to build that confidence. And again, that all starts to build up and you just become a successful person.
Well, look at Paladin.
Yeah.
It's a great example. Like, what was it that really tied his psychology for success and confidence? The Iron Man. Before that point, he hadn't achieved anything to be confident. And then when he trained and then completed the Iron Man, you see like a very tilt in his trajectory in his life, right? Like that this accomplishment. And there's someone else I know who did a very similar thing. The accomplishment of achieving, I think it was an Iron Man as well, to be fair. But essentially, saying like someone, it might be a marathon for someone. It might be completing 10 books. It might be saving $10,000 or pounds after like a year, of really like, doing a process of saving. But it's achieving something where you had to put in work. It might be losing weight, And I think that's a very valid point, a very, very valid point. And I think a lot of people don't go through. It's like the people we were talking about earlier. I'm not made to work a job. How many jobs you worked? One. How long were you there? A week. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I've worked crazy amounts of jobs, all sorts. I've painted houses. I've looked after like children in care. I've worked in like chicken shops, like a KFC, if you will. I've worked in like sales. I've worked in all sorts of things as a waiter many times. And even now, like I've always had the mentality that if everything was to go, for God forbid, I get cancelled. I get cancelled and trading goes to shit. I'll go work a job again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'll go do sales. I'll go do any job as well. I'll do any job. Would I like it? Of course, maybe I might not like it, but am I willing to do it? Yes. And will I always be willing to do it? Yeah. That's why I like to reflect a lot. Of like recently I've been reflecting. I normally do it like towards the end of the year. But I was like thinking about, okay, I used to work in this chicken shop. I used to sit at the fryer and blow 200-300 pound accounts because I was just putting money in that I couldn't afford to lose, right? And that was luckily before props, because I probably would have thrown more in, like we said. But yeah, it's such an interesting thing. And the final question I'm going to ask you actually was in regards to, I think you kind of touched on it earlier about, knowing when you're sort of seeing the markets clearly, and that's when you can increase risk and stuff and take more trades. From your experience so far, how often do you see really big months, like huge profit, not huge, but like out of the norm sort of profits, right? Larger than average.
This year was like 2, man. Like really crazy. It's like August was really good. And what's funny, it came after my worst month. Wow. I went on like a 2-week losing streak, and it was mostly public too, because I'm like calling the trades out. So it's like those losses are, and that's made me such a better trader doing that. But it amplified those losses, you know, because I'm like, then you don't even want to take a trade anymore. You're like, oh, is another loss? What is I going to do? You know what I mean? But yeah, I try not to expect anything. Like I would, this year was 2. Like 2022 was crazy. It was like the entire like September to December, I made more money in that short time of period than I ever had in my life trading. You know what I mean? But I don't ever expect that to happen again. You know what I mean? I think that there's so many different factors that come into play with that. Like, it's not just the markets, it's your personal life, like what you're doing, what you have going on, what kind of mentality you're in. You know, there's so much stuff that can go into. So I tell people to expect nothing in the markets, because I think that trying to put labels on stuff or trying to expect things, like people say like, oh my, how much percent should I shoot for a month? Like, what should I expect? And I'm like, listen, like, you fail to understand that there is no guarantee in this game. And the more you look for it, the more you're going to be lost. Right. And again, it comes back to like people wanting the benefit of, you know, being an employee, but they, you know, also want the benefits of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get that in this world. You don't. You know what I mean? You got to take risks. You got to accept that you're not entitled to anything. You could lose it all. Like you said, if you got to go back to square one, you just got to do that. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, I would say like no more. I mean, you never know. I guess like 2 to 3. You know what I mean? Like,
but it's not like every month.
Hell no. Definitely not. Definitely.
So I feel like it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier: is people are looking for that strategy that allows them to read the market like a book. The reason they want that is so they could make crazy money all the time, every time. You know?
Yeah.
And a main part of the podcast is to obviously hear people's journeys. You know, realize the reality of trading. You know, yes, get a lot of value across, of course, but the reality of trading. And I think that's one of the misconceptions that people really need to realize, is that it doesn't mean that other months are bad. You're still making good money. But in terms of like the huge profits that people are always after, that's not going to be all the time. And that huge profits might come on a regular basis when you scale to the multi-million mark. So then the small percentage gain, the average percentage gain, reflects to a large amount. But even then, the big, like, you know, let's say the 6-figure months or multi-6-figure months at that size is still going to be once or twice or 3 times a year. Like, it's going to, and again, like you mentioned, I think very important, which is that you don't plan for them. I think what you did touch on there, which I think is very important, is like it's multitude of things. It's not just the markets. Yeah. Right. And I think that's why it happens ever so often, because everything has to align at once. And how often is everything going to align at once? It's like a solar eclipse. Yeah. How often? They're not every day, every month, you know? Right. It's once every, it's not even, sometimes not even once a year, you know? But, you know, they come occasionally, and that's when everything aligns. And I think that's a very, very powerful point. Very powerful point. But Casper, we're going to have to do this again. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. You know, everyone, make sure you drop it in the comments below, you know, your biggest takeaway from this episode. And let us know, you know, what other questions you would like to hear as well. But make sure the links for Casper will be in the description below. So make sure you check them out. And for everyone, thank you for tuning in. Hit subscribe. Take care.